Hey everyone, Thyworm here. In today's video I'm going to give my review of patch 0.9.1, highlighting things I like, things I don't like, and completely ignoring most of the multiplayer changes because I don't play these games with other people, and most of you don't either, so we'll just skip that part. Keep in mind, this is a review from someone who's played the game for over 1750 hours, so I am mainly hoping for endgame changes, content, and some longevity. And spoiler alert, there's pretty much nothing here for long-time players, unfortunately. Let's start with the campaign recreation. It is a recreation, not a rework, because the devs completely overhauled Chapter 1. You are starting out in the Divine Era amidst peace treaty negotiations and shit hits the fan. Or, well, Raya's forces hit the keepers of Ithera, and after some trials and tribulations you end up in the Void Era Chapter 2 and the campaign plays out like it used to before the patch. The new zones look pretty good, I would say, and from a narrative perspective I feel it is much easier to follow along with the story instead of swapping eras 4 times in 12 minutes, like we used to do. It is explained what the shards do, you're making use of them as well, albeit forced, and overall it is an improvement. Also, it introduces a bunch of new enemies, which is always a nice addition. My only question here is why there is a focus on this to begin with. Wouldn't you want to use the level design capacity around endgame instead, which has been the same for the last 2 years? I would, at least. Then, from the start of the game to the endgame, the Monolith of Fate, did we get anything new and or interesting? Well, a little bit. In terms of the Monolith, it is mostly small improvements. There is a new objective, Ambush, which means that instead of chasing an arrow on the minimap at some point after slaying a bunch of enemies, the arrow comes to you, and you are being ambushed. It is fine, like so many things in this update. It is just fine. It's neither here or there, but I do prefer this objective compared to patrolling siege golems, for example. Another small change is a new node in the Monolith, which allows you to reduce corruption after doing a small boss fight in an area. On paper, good idea. It makes the whole Orbiz nodes a lot less confusing after all. I'm showing you here this node and I'm wondering why I have to do this in the first place. It's pretty tedious killing 5 of the same bosses. Why not just a button to remove corruption for gold or something? Lore reasons, sure, but lore should never impact gameplay. And this just seems like overdoing it to me. Unfortunately, like many things this patch, this feature seems barely tested, and it removed 38 corruption instead of the 10 that I asked for. And I can't remove the UI anymore, forcing me to restart the game. It is sort of indicative of the number of bugs in this patch, a patch not tested by community testers, and a patch that feels a bit rushed, just to get it out before the Diablo 4 hype train is starting. It is lower quality than we are used to, and it also shows in other departments of the game, like the MTX store. I've made 2 videos about the MTX store already, which were, fortunately not controversial at all. I'm not going into that again, but I will say now that we have the shop, the MTX simply don't look great, most of them, in my opinion. The quality, once again in my opinion, is just not there. Same is true for the supporter packs, which still all give only 150 Epoch points, despite the purchasing price. Path of Exile and likely Diablo 4 will offer much better value in their supporter packs, and I feel EHG should just give you as many Epoch points as the price of the supporter pack, like PoE does. Why skimp on that? It is literally free for them. Ironically, the shared town feature, which is only there to show off your MTX, let's be honest, was so bugged out and caused so many network issues that they had to revert that, and at the moment of writing it is still not implemented. I don't mind it too much. I will buy the occasional supporter pack, but not now. I'm not impressed at all by the offerings or the changes. Talking a bit about network issues and lag and bugs, there are quite a few. Some of them I mentioned, and most of them are known bugs, at least according to the devs, like the game lagging out every time the Weaver updates an item, or floor textures missing. But load times between zones are still long. I'm getting lag spikes every now and then, and picking up 10 plus crafting materials also causes a lag spike. I can't really speak about playing multiplayer, but I can say that the servers or the network architecture are definitely not where they should be. Whatever it is, let's hope EHG is able to fix that fairly soon. Although, realistically, they have 3 months from now on or something. Because for the next 3 months, Diablo 4 and PoE 2 are going to take over the ARPG news cycle. There is sort of one bright light, the Weaver's Will, a new class of unique items in the game. There are 9 of them, 5 of those 9 are relics, 1 relic for each class, and all of those give +1 skills to that class. Overall, my first impression of these I've dropped and woven 4 so far is that they're fine once again. The RNG on them is quite severe, and while legendary potential is deterministic, with Weaver's Will it is a total crapshoot what you're getting. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and the affixes are quickly being added to the item. It only takes a few monolith nodes before your entire item is upgraded, but the end result so far is lacking. With some balancing, however, I think this concept is interesting enough, and having another set of uniques like this is never a bad thing in my opinion. I'm just unsure about limiting it to a few uniques only, like they have done now. I don't really see an issue with uniques having a few options, right? They're either dropping with no legendary potential, some legendary potential, or some Weaver's Will points. I honestly don't see why that would be bad, and I think for variety it could be interesting. Regarding the lore of the Weaver, an entity we haven't seen yet in Last Epoch, I would like to share my theory as someone who is a bit of an astronomy nerd. The question is, of course, what is the Weaver weaving? Clothes? Well, probably not. I think it is weaving spacetime. You see, in astronomy, scientists generally agree that something called spacetime exists. It is our 3-dimensional space we experience plus the 4th dimension of time, combined in a single entity. I think Einstein was the first to use this and then started thinking about how space and time could be bent and changed, coming up with his theories on relativity. In order to visualize or conceptualize spacetime a little bit better, scientists often use the concept of the fabric of spacetime. Fabric because it is a real thing, especially on a macro-universal scale. The fabric of spacetime is, for example, influenced by black holes, which bend the fabric of spacetime. You can imagine this fabric of spacetime like the surface of a trampoline, and then you put a bowling ball on that trampoline and the fabric of spacetime then bends around that heavy bowling ball. In reality, the same thing happens with heavy objects in the universe, like stars and black holes. They bend spacetime, like the bowling ball bends the surface of a trampoline. And it's actually the reason why Earth rotates around the Sun. I think the Weaver will be weaving the fabric of spacetime as well in Last Epoch, thus creating connections between eras that weren't previously there. A bit like wormholes providing access to other points in spacetime. Mark my words. Back to Last Epoch, there is another change, a pretty cool one. Uniques with legendary potential always have the same base level requirements regardless of what legendary you create out of them. So if you find a level 1 unique with 3 legendary potential and you put some good stats from an exalted item on that, like I'm attempting here, the resulting legendary would still only require level 1 to wear, despite it being a very good item, potentially a tier 22 plus item or something. This is completely broken for twinks, and I'm quite happy with this change because this will make leveling alts so much easier. Finally, in the announcement video, Judd once more stated that Last Epoch 1.0 will launch later this year, so we are in fact getting Last Epoch in 2023. That has to be by the end of the year. The release window is going to be interesting because after Diablo 4 and PoE 2, which is rumored to have a beta by the end of the year, it might be hard to find a proper release spot. Still, the game since 0.9 is definitely doing okay, I would say. This patch brought around half of the people in that joined for 0.9, and given the fact there's basically no new content, apart from what we covered here, you can't blame people for passing on this one. It's overall not impressive, but like I've mentioned before, it is just fine. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.